Alan Watts, the Zen philosopher of the Western world. Alan Wilson Watts, a luminary of the 20th century philosophical landscape, was born on January 6, 1915, in Chislehurst, Kent, England. He was the eldest of 3 children born to Lawrence Wilson Watts, a representative for the London office of the Michelin Tire Company, and Emily Mary Watts, who had a profound interest in the mystical and artistic realms. Alan's early upbringing was marked by a blend of conventional education and exposure to theosophy, Buddhism, and Christian mysticism, all of which would greatly influence his philosophical outlook later in life. From a young age, Alan showed a remarkable intellect and a voracious appetite for knowledge. He attended King's School, Canterbury, where his academic prowess was evident, particularly in the subjects of literature and philosophy. However, Alan's true passion lay in the study of Eastern philosophy and spirituality, which he began exploring in his teenage years. This fascination with Eastern thought would become a defining feature of his life and work. In 1931, at the age of 16, Watts embarked on a journey to the Far East, where he visited China and Japan. This trip proved to be a pivotal experience for him, as it exposed him to the teachings of Zen Buddhism and Taoism firsthand. Watts was deeply captivated by the simplicity and profundity of these traditions, and upon his return to England, he immersed himself in the study of Eastern philosophy and languages. In 1936, Watts enrolled at the University of London, where he studied literature and philosophy. He was an avid reader of the works of Western philosophers such as Bertrand Russell and G. E. Moore, but it was his encounter with the writings of D.T. Suzuki, a renowned Japanese Zen scholar, that had the most profound impact on him. Suzuki's elucidation of Zen Buddhism resonated deeply with Watts, prompting him to delve even further into the study of Eastern thought. In 1938, Watts published his first book, The Spirit of Zen, which introduced Western audiences to the core principles of Zen Buddhism. This seminal work laid the groundwork for Watts's subsequent career as a popularizer and interpreter of Eastern philosophy for Western audiences. Over the next few decades, Watts would become one of the most prominent voices in the burgeoning counterculture movement of the 1950s and 1960s, thanks to his captivating lectures, radio broadcasts, and numerous books on Eastern and comparative philosophy. Watts's philosophy can be characterized by his emphasis on the interconnectedness of all things and the illusory nature of the self. He argued that the ego, or the sense of individual identity, is a construct of the mind and ultimately an illusion. According to Watts, true liberation comes from transcending the ego and embracing the interconnectedness of existence. One of Watts's most enduring contributions to Western thought is his interpretation of the concept of Wu Wei from Taoist philosophy. Wu Wei, often translated as effortless action or non-doing, refers to a state of being in which one acts spontaneously and effortlessly, in harmony with the natural flow of life. Watts saw Wu Wei as a key to living authentically and finding inner peace amidst the chaos of the modern world. Throughout his life, Watts grappled with his own inner demons, including struggles with alcoholism and existential despair. Despite these personal challenges, he remained committed to his philosophical pursuits and continued to inspire countless individuals with his profound insights into the nature of reality and the human condition. Alan Watts passed away on November 16, 1973, at the age of 58, leaving behind a rich legacy of wisdom and inspiration. His teachings continue to resonate with people around the world, offering a timeless reminder of the interconnectedness of all things and the eternal dance of life and death. Works. 1. The Wisdom of Insecurity, 1951. In 1951, Watts' book The Wisdom of Insecurity, A Message for an Age of Anxiety was published. To address the anxious state of the world due to many unknowns and incomprehensible phenomena, he looked to Buddhism for wisdom. Instead of striving for a security that may not exist, he teaches the importance of living in the moment and welcoming the reality of uncertainties. Stress about the future is a common human experience, and many turn to things like religion or material possessions to cope. Although these may provide some comfort, it's bound to be fleeting since the future remains fluid. Our natural tendency to find ways to avoid suffering is pointless since pain is inevitable and necessary to experience pleasure. Instead of giving in to this anxiety, Watts urges us to see that humans can control the future. Acknowledging the mind-body connection is one way to join the inner world to the outer world, which can bring peace to conflict. He believes we are all unified, making up a greater consciousness that binds humanity together. By halting thought processes that attempt to make sense of what can't be explained, staying in the present can free an individual from crippling fear about what's to come. Chasing happiness outside your inner self will lead to dissatisfaction. Constantly running after something that won't sustain the state you desire is a waste of energy. The brain can only assume its proper behavior when consciousness is doing what it is designed for, not writhing and whirling to get out of present experience, but being effortlessly aware of it. 2. Nature, Man and Woman, 1958. Nature, Man and Woman was written by Watts and published in 1958. He explores the marriage between nature and spirituality that Chinese Buddhism preaches, which is lacking in Western Christianity. The latter's ideology separates God from nature, which isolates sexuality and leaves no room for its acceptance. To reconnect with nature, the animal kingdom should be our models, as they inhabit the earth too and don't fight it. Watts believes our perception of nature as peaceful is ignorant. In reality, it is full of suffering, which explains why humans may find a way to detach themselves from it. Understanding nature with a framework of complexity is meaningless. If our physical bodies and nature are seen as unified, it becomes simplified. Man when living is soft and tender, when dead he is hard and tough. All animals and plants are tender and fragile, when dead they become withered and dry. Therefore it is said, the hard and the tough are parts of death, the soft and tender are parts of life. A high value is placed on celibacy in both the East and West, which translates to men perceiving themselves as the property of God in the same way that a woman is the property of a husband. But Watts emphasizes the significance of spontaneity, and how the belief in an omnipotent higher entity stifles both creativity and natural sexual nature. Imagining instead that God is formless is a manifestation of spontaneity going against logic. In his mind, this correlates to sex. It's most powerful when it's morally good, of course, but most importantly, not planned deliberately. Watts sees God as the artist behind our beautiful planet that spontaneously grows, not as the legalistic ruler taught within the confines of a church. 3. The Joyous Cosmology, 1962. Watts' book The Joyous Cosmology was published at the start of the psychedelics movement of the 60s. Scientific research of hallucinogenic drugs was highly endorsed at the time. Once the 70s hit, however, psychedelics were banned from research, and the craze slowly began to die down. The initial response to this book was strong due to its focus on psychedelics, but its popularity faded with the drug scene until the 90s when drugs like LSD began to garner interest once again. Many people rediscovered or found the book for the first time in this second awakening. 3 main sections make up the Joyous Cosmology. Watts begins by exploring his issue with specifically Western culture's delusional thinking in terms of ego alienation, which he believes could be unpacked with psychedelics. He follows this by outlining his personal experience under the influence. This displays the real sensations that can be produced from this state of altered consciousness. The book concludes with an interpretation of the mind's journey with psychedelics, proposing that the ego appears to be less dominant than we believe. Quotes by Alan Watts. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. Man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. We do not come into this world, we come out of it, as leaves from a tree. As the ocean waves, the universe peoples. This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now. And instead of calling it work, realize it is play. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. No valid plans for the future can be made by those who have no capacity for living now. You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. Keep learning about everything, try to read something every day. Thanks for watching.